Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. And hi, folks. I'm Mike, and I hope you're well. Welcome to this live stream where I am celebrating my first year on YouTube. Yes, it was 1 year ago today that I uploaded my first video here on Creative Source. So if you're here at all watching in the live stream, then do say hi. Keep me awake because I'll tell you about what time it is of the day here. And if you're watching on the replay, then do say hi in the comments. Ask me any questions you like. This is a little bit of a free-for-all, but I do have a little bit of a structure, thankfully. It's going to be a little bit of a self-indulgent show. I'm not going to be talking about any specific technical aspects or anything like that. I'm just going to be talking about the channel in general. If you want to ask any questions at all, I'll try my best to answer them. We're going to be talking a little bit about how I came to create the channel Creative Source, why I did it, a little bit about what my background was leading up to that. And also I'll be taking a little bit of a trip down memory lane. And I'll be talking a little bit about what I've learned in the process. And I've really learned an awful lot in the process. And hopefully that can inspire you with your own sort of artistic ventures and the sort of things you're doing in your life, whether it's creating music or some other creation process. And hopefully I can inspire you a little bit. And I'll also be talking a little bit about what the future of the channel holds, what I hope to achieve in the future with the channel. So I want to start off first of all just by saying thank you, a huge thank you to the many people that have subscribed to me. I think I'm on around about 6,500 subscribers. It's sort of small in YouTube terms, but it's way more than I'd really hoped for at the beginning. So I'm very, very thankful for it. And I'm always pleased to see that you guys are enjoying the content I'm making and want to see more of it. And also, I'd like to just give a little bit of a thanks to some of the partners I've worked with. I've got to say, in particular, people like Ample Sound, they've worked really, really closely with me. Melda Productions has been another nice one. And also a big thank you to a good friend of mine, Pete Johns, who I've been doing some live shows with. But this is my first solo live show, so I'm a little bit nervous, wondering when I'm just going to fall apart or fall asleep. More on that later. But yeah, first of all, just a couple of highs to some of the people in the comments. I have, I'm not sure how to say your name, but it's coming up as D-Spur. He's saying thanks for the help so far and looking forward to more. I'm looking forward to giving more help. So thanks very much for watching, really liking, commenting, all of that stuff really keeps me going. And also someone else here. I'm sorry that I can't pronounce your name. Shall I have a go? Okay, here we go. Orgoloso de Senada. I may have pulled that off. Saying thank you for the Cakewalk videos. This software needs to reach more musicians, producers, and engineers. Absolutely agree. I'm a long-time Cakewalk user, and I'll be talking a little bit later on about how I came to cover Cakewalk on the channel, which was a little bit unintentional. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. But I want to start off by actually talking about you guys, and I've prepared a little bit here, so it's not quite a free-for-all, but, we'll see where we go with this. I'm going to talk about who you are. Perhaps you don't know who you are. Well, I'm going to let you know because YouTube does a really good job of letting me know who you are, and I've got some stats here. Let me pull this up. Now, I don't know if you can see that very clearly, but it's quite interesting to me who's watching the channel. Of course, I like to know who's watching the channel so I can try to tailor my content to you guys a little bit. But first of all, the big stat is that 99.4% of us are guys. This is a reasonably lady-free zone. And I did think about venturing as to why that may be, why this particular hobby or profession attracts mostly men. I have met some women during the year who have been recording, But I did think about why that might be, and then I realized every single explanation that I would offer is bound to offend someone. So I don't, I'm not really in the game of offending people, not when I'm sober anyway. So I'm not quite sure. Perhaps you would like to make some suggestions as to why it's mostly men that like to take part in this activity, because obviously making music is very much across the board. Um, I'm a little bit surprised, considering I'm an old, wrinkly guy, that most of you are quite young, quite a lot younger than me, in fact. 18 to 24-year-olds represent 28% of you, and 25 to 34-year-olds. So between 18 and 34 is where most of you are. I'm very happy that I'm able to pass on some knowledge to folks and get them going with what they're doing. And so that makes me very happy indeed. But all age groups are welcome. I really couldn't care what age people are. It's all the same to me. And probably a very significant statistic this evening is that 26% of you come from the United States, the biggest country, in total, who watch me. And the reason that is significant, hi, Paul, hi, Saiful, hi, Bethany. Sorry, I will get to you guys soon. The reason it's significant that most of you are from the United States is because it's the reason I'm here right now. I have done some live shows with my friend Pete Johns during the year. This is my first solo one, but we normally do them at a convenient time to us here in Australia. But however, seeing as most of you guys are either in the United States or in Europe, I decided to do it at this time. But I will tell you, it's 3 a.m. here. And for an old fella like me, that's really, really late. So it's been an odd evening. I stayed awake for you guys, and I'll be sleeping through tomorrow. But I thought it'd be just good to have the opportunity to meet some people that I haven't before. And I will just pop Bethany up there. Hi, Bethany Young. You found this channel. Thanks for the info. Now I can start recording my own songs. Do it. The best time to start recording your own songs is right now. Saiful Amin, I think is your name. I hope I've pronounced it correctly. The Cakewalk tutorials have been great for a novice musician like me. And that's very interesting indeed. I think that Cakewalk at the moment, because it's free, especially, is probably appealing to people that are just getting into recording. However, it's a very, very complete package, as we know. Paul there, hi, thanks for the excellent advice. I've been following for the last few months. Just so helpful. I wouldn't have got this far without your help. Oh, thank you so much. I've seen you before in the comments, Paul, of course. And you're from Austria, and you're 63 years old. So it's nice to have at least one person who's a tiny little bit older than me, Paul. Thank you very much for being here. And Alan, loves my videos. Best is on Cakewalk. There's some really good Cakewalk videos around there. You have to kind of hunt for them. I'm always researching to see which ones have already been done. And there's 2 or 3 people I may be touching on that who also make them. And also just quickly going to say you're from Chile. Sorry, I said your name earlier. Let's go again. Orgaloso de Cernada. I hope I got that right. Anyway. So yeah, and just one more from Shannon. Hey Shannon, how you doing? Congrats on the 1-year anniversary and happy Halloween. Yes, indeed. Indeed. I forgot it was that. Might bring out my dark side. Never know. So that is you guys, and I'll be saying hello to some of you later on. I just want to very, very quickly go through. I had a trip down memory lane because I was thinking about how to explain to you guys where I'm coming from. Or how I came to be interested in doing this activity and why I've been doing it for so long. So during the course of thinking about how I came to do this, I grabbed a few pictures to jog my memory. So I'm just going to go through here. I started recording back in around about 1985 when I was at high school. And the first machine I ever did a recording on was this one here. This is a Fostex 80. Wasn't I lucky, hey? This is not a bad thing to do your first recording on. I was at a very progressive high school in England, and they had a little recording studio there, and we were allowed to make some things. I think I even recorded one song, which I still have on a cassette, on this particular machine, but I found it very, very fascinating, the idea of layering different sounds onto each other. The next thing I did was I had this thing at home. I don't know where it came from. I think it may have been my sister's, and I used to sneak into her bedroom, and I used to love playing around with this. It had two cassette decks, and you can see right in the middle there. I'll just put my mouse there. You can see some microphone sockets. And I found that if you made a recording on one cassette, and then you moved it to the other deck, and then you sang over the top of it with the microphone, for example, you could tape to the other cassette, and you could layer some sounds. So that was it wasn't very good quality, as you can imagine, but I did make quite a few songs with that and a drum machine and my electric guitar when I was around about probably 13 years old, I guess, something like that. The next thing, I'm just going to whip through these as quick as I can, actually, because otherwise we could be here all night reminiscing. Now, not many of you will have seen this. Me and a drummer in my band actually pulled some money together and bought this off of a guy that I knew, and it was a music computer, and I didn't know what I was going to do with it, to be honest with you. All I knew that it was a computer that was for music, and that was what I needed because I wanted to make music. You couldn't record audio on it; it was just MIDI. It had MIDI ports on it. You could link it up to some synths like DX7s, if anyone can remember the DX7, and you could do some programming and you could do some little sequencing. And just for you guys who think that Cakewalk is hard, this is what it looked like, and this is how you did your sequencing. You actually had to put it in on the staves like that. Hey, how about that? What a lovely screenshot that is. And I can't remember what it sounded like. I think it had some internal FM sounds, and probably didn't sound that great, but that was my first try at using a computer with music. I think that was around about 1985. By about 1987, I was using one of these. And if you don't know what it is, this is a legendary Atari ST. What a wonderful computer this was. And one of the great things was it had MIDI ports on it. And that meant that you could do some sequencing. I don't remember recording any audio on it, but certainly this was something that I messed around with quite a bit. I was quite into, using MIDI and sequencing at that time, and, connecting it to drum machines, synthesizers, that kind of thing. The next thing up, well, this is a screenshot from an Atari ST, and I believe this is not my own screenshot, but I believe that this is an early version of Cubase, Steinberg's Cubase, which was on the ST. So this gives you an idea around about 1987 of how, I guess you could call them DAWs or MIDI sequences more correctly. That's how they were looking. Yes, indeed. And the next thing that happened, I guess, for me was this, and I see someone's already mentioned that they had a Foster 4-track. They probably mean a Fostex 4-track cassette recorder. This is Alan here. Hi, Alan. And I think you probably mean a Fostex 4-track recorder. And my goodness, we did get some good use out of those machines. I had left high school and I was working in a musical instrument store, and I was very fortunate to have access to as many of these things as I wanted to play around with. I could take them home at the weekend and I could muck around with them, and I very much did. And the one that I actually used a little bit more than this one, because this was one of the earlier ones for me, was this one. This was much more compact. A little Yamaha one. I used to hook it up to some Yamaha drum machines at the time, and I've still got a few recordings which I made on that. I see that they sell for a pretty penny now, secondhand, but personally, I just think they sounded awful. The amount of hiss you got from them was just dreadful. I'm all for some vintage sounds, but not that kind of vintage. But anyway, each to their own. Beyond that, I was then working mostly after that in a band, and the only times that we did recordings was either on something like a 4-track machine like this, or I did venture into some professional studios a few times. And I was not engineering whatsoever. I was just recording. I was singing in a band at the time and playing guitar, and we actually made a record. I actually did make one vinyl record once in my life, all those years back, and then after that, I think we were just making cassettes and giving them out at gigs and trying to sell them and all that sort of good stuff that you do. But a little bit later, as the sort of early 90s were marching on to the mid 90s, I started to get into recording music on my PC. And the very first DAW I used was something called Digital Orchestra Plus, it was called. This is a pretty dreadful screenshot of it, but this is what it looked like. And that was my very first go at recording on a DAW. And I got a lot done on that. I used to record audio and MIDI on there, and then I used to mix it down onto mini discs. If anyone can remember mini discs, they never quite took off, but you could record digitally to mini discs. And then I used to distribute them on cassette back in those days. It's a little bit before CD burners. Not too many years after that, in around about 1997, I was living in England and I moved out to Australia. And when I first came to Australia, I started doing some solo gigs, and I was very fortunate to be able to play a lot of my own material. I was writing a lot of songs that was going down well, and I was doing regular solo spots. And I decided that I needed to record some sort of album. I literally just had no money whatsoever. Struggling musician, the usual story. I got hold of a PC, which I borrowed from someone. I lent from someone, and I got hold of a copy of Cakewalk. And I'm not quite sure what version Cakewalk would have been on then, as I say, around about 1998. But I didn't know quite what I was doing, only that previously when I was back in the UK, I'd used this Digital Orchestra Plus, and I recorded a whole album just in my bedroom on this borrowed PC with Cakewalk. And I didn't even use a proper microphone like this or anything. I just had a little stick mic. It was like the kind of thing you would get from an office supplies, those stick mics. And I just made the best I could out of it. And there was an awful lot of EQing needed to be done to make it sound any good. And that was my first experience with Cakewalk. So that would have been around about, yes, that's over 20 years ago now. So since then, since using Cakewalk, I then did have a little bit later on my own studio, probably a few years after that, and I think we mostly ran Cubase in there. I have used Fruity Loops quite a lot, or FL Studio as it's now called, a little bit with Pro Tools, and I then a little bit later, around about the 2010 mark, I started using Logic quite a lot on the Mac, and then 2 or 3 years after that, I got back to recording on the PC. And for most of that time, I was using Cakewalk, but I do also use Studio One reasonably regularly still as well. Now I use both of those programs. So that's a bit about who I am. And just a little over a year ago, after putting off the idea of actually creating a YouTube channel at all, because I thought no one wanted to watch some old fella with grey hair waffle on about stuff. My daughter, who was 12, had made a little tutorial video about a piece of software she was using, and she got quite a few thousand views. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. People really are looking for knowledge. And then I thought, well, I'd like to tell people about how to make music at home. And I haven't given you my whole story there. There was a whole big chunk that I've kind of missed out about some television production that I did where I was producing music in that, and also a media company I had, which involved producing some music as well. And I was using DAWs through all of that. But that is a much longer story indeed. So here we are. I just want to say hi to some people while I'm here. DP, hey, you remember those days in the late 90s. It was a great time. I think it was a really great time for music as well. And I'm probably more influenced by 90s music than I am anything else, although I love all kinds of music. So yeah, thanks for being here. MC, hey, it's nice to see you, man. I normally don't see you live, but I do. I normally see you down in the comments. Nice to see you here, man. Always good to have you around. And I've been checking out some of your music recently as well, which is very, very cool, man. Keep going with that. Alan, here we go. I haven't read this. Download BandLab, but keep your Sonar Platinum on your computer. You'll keep all your instruments. Good advice there. It is good advice that if you previously were an owner of Sonar, if you keep it on your system, then you're going to have some of the plugins and things available to you. Shannon again here. There you go, Shannon. You can't be old. You're too close to my age, and I'm young. Absolutely, Shannon. The younger, we're young at heart and all that stuff. Hi to Road King Jonesy, lovely channel. You've really helped me use Cakewalk. Thanks so much. And I will be getting onto the subject of Cakewalk a little bit more, because me making Cakewalk videos was a little bit of an accident, which I have to kind of thank you guys for. I'll get back to some of the comments later. And thanks so much for being here, guys. I see there's a few people watching, and that really makes it worth my while. As I say, it's now 3:20 in the morning here, so yeah, I've had a few cups of tea. Tea is my favorite drink, by the way. I'm a bit of a teetotaler, you might say, and also making sure I get some water in here as well. I'm just quickly going to mention Bud Greenwood, who's popped up there. He's been using Cakewalk since 2007 and learned more from your vids than anywhere else. Keep him going. Well, that's a very nice of you to say. So I am aware of a few other people that do make excellent Cakewalk videos as well, though. And basically, I'm trying to fill in some holes, which perhaps some people have missed, but anyway, we'll get back to that. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the things that I have personally learned, not so much about what I've taught, but what I've learned in this process. And this is not just a waffle on. This is, I'm hoping to help you guys, to inspire you with the artwork that you're doing. So the first thing that I'd like to say, and I've got something to help me here, a little banner. The first point that I'd like to make, and something I've learned, is it's good to have a time limit. I have to say that although I've professionally made music for a big part of the last 25 years or so, I've also spent a lot of time making music for fun, just making my own music. And I can tell you that even recently, as I was been going through my files, there are songs on there which I started recording even 8 or 9 years ago, and they don't ever see the light of day. And that's a sort of it's a bad habit that you can get into in your home studio. So some of you guys may have seen recently that I made a video about how to distribute your songs across different networks such as Spotify, iTunes, etc. That was with DistroKid. Check that video out if you haven't seen it. And some people have been saying to me, I may do that in the future if I want to go commercial. It's actually a really good exercise just to get your songs out there, get them released, and just draw a line under them, and then move on to the next song, move on to the next project. I have actually made 75 videos in the last year, and the reason for that is I made a promise to myself right at the beginning that I would make at least one video every week. And I ended up making more. But I have done that, whether I've been sick or whether I've been busy, or all kinds of things have gone on during the year, as they do for all of us. But I did make sure that I always got a video out. I made that commitment to myself. And I can tell you, I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, and every single one of those videos, as far as I'm concerned, has got quite a number of flaws. But I made the commitment that I'll release them, and that's what I did. And it's really taught me that it's good to have a time limit. It's good to get things done, draw a line under them, get them out, move on to the next thing. Nothing's ever going to be perfect for you. So I think that's the first thing that I've kind of learned in that time. So I encourage you, do something with your music. Even if you're going to put it on Spotify, it's only going to get a couple of plays, you and your mum. It doesn't matter. It just means it's out there, it's done, and you can move on to your next song and your next recording. Now, the next thing I would like to talk about is oh, yes. Okay. Well, this is a little bit more specific to making YouTube or helping others out. But what I did learn, it's not what you know, it's how well you can explain it. So, what I guess I've learned in the process of this year is look, there's guys out there, folks. I shouldn't probably tell you this, but there's people that know way more than me. I'm still learning just like you guys are all the time. I'm always learning. I pick up bits and pieces here and there from other people, even from you guys in the comments sometimes. There's definitely guys out there who know more than me about Cakewalk, about Studio One, about all different doors, all kinds of things. However, I guess that what I've tried to focus on is not so much what I know, but how well I can impart that to other people. And do let me know if you think I'm failing in any way or I can improve in any way, because we all can improve. I've certainly had to learn all kinds of things about how to impart knowledge to people. And I have to thank my son a little bit, because after I'd made about 2 or 3 videos, my son watched it, and he's in his late 20s, and he said to me, "Oh, it's a cool video, Dad, but I didn't understand any of it, and I'd like to try and get into this, but I didn't understand what you're talking about." And it kind of taught me that I need to strive to reach people who are just starting off and explain it in ways that they can understand. I know that some of you have said that you've been able to understand what I say. I still think I can do a much, much better job of it, and I'm striving to do that. And hopefully, it can mean that the doors are open to all kinds of people, regardless of their experience. Because I really want to see everyone making music. That's the joy for me. That's the awesome thing. So the next thing I've learned about, and this may surprise you a little bit, is confidence. So this one's a little bit more personal, guys, and I just want to share a little bit with you. Um, Now, I'm sure that I come across to you guys as a sort of a fairly confident kind of guy, pretty sure of myself. But like most people, I have my insecurities, and definitely over the years, I have definitely suffered from big periods of self-doubt. Times where I just really felt that I didn't have much worth, I didn't have much to offer people in all kinds of ways. And I don't mind telling you, folks, I've touched upon it a little bit here and there, but I like to be quite open about this. I've definitely over the years suffered from mental health issues, depression, anxiety, all of those kinds of things. And so going into this was a little bit of a kind of a exercise for me in terms of how am I going to deal with criticism? How am I going to deal with maintaining a self-worth and that kind of thing? I have to say that I feel very, very fortunate. As we know, the internet can be a very hostile place. And YouTube is not exempt from that. But for me personally, over the course of this year, I've just received 99.9999% positivity. I've been corrected in very graciously by some regulars when I've got things wrong, and I've you know uh, that's been fine. I have had a couple of personal attacks. Really, I think it's just a couple, and I can hardly even remember them, to be honest with you. I learned that, and I think this is important when you're making music for you guys, that there's a tendency with our brains, our human brains, that if we get 100 compliments and one person criticizes us, that we can tend to stew on that one bit of criticism, and it will go round and round in your head, and it will bother you. And I've really had to, well, I haven't struggled with it, but it's been an interesting thing that I've had to learn. I'm sure lots of you as musicians have already learned this, but You simply can't please all people. There are just some people that are never going to like you and what you do. It doesn't matter. They for whatever reason. And it's probably more to do with where they are at in life than what you're actually doing. Um, I know, for example, some people, some people have said that they think I talk a bit too loudly and I wave my hands around too much, which I thought was really funny because I do. I was watching my videos and I was thinking, my God, what's going on with those hands, man? And I've had to learn a little bit about how to pace myself when I talk, and I'm still learning that all the time. I don't know about the hand waving. I don't mind the hand waving. Look, I'm doing it now. Why not? Get some expression going. But yeah, definitely, I've had to learn to laugh at myself as well, and that's very, very important. Yeah, I sort of thought that given that I had a bit of a history of a lack of confidence in myself at times, that perhaps I was being a bit of a fool going on YouTube and exposing myself in that way. But it hasn't turned out that way at all. It hasn't been anything like what I thought it would be, to be honest with you. Even on Reddit, Reddit is very well known, and some of you may have come from Reddit and found me from there. It's very well known for being hostile. At the beginning, it was quite hostile towards me. I just chose to ignore it, to be honest with you, and that's still what I do. If I get occasional insulting comments, not too many, I just move on past them. I just think it's whatever. Who cares? I'm here to talk about music and the joy of music and making music and getting out there to the world. And I don't want to stew in other people's misery. But yeah, so that's been something. What I did learn though is that we all do have our strengths and our weaknesses. And I discovered after about the third or fourth video, in fact, that the best thing I could do was just as much as I could be myself. And it's a little bit strange when you first start off, looking into a camera. There's no one else in the house even, and you're talking. It's a little bit of an odd experience. Um, but I soon got used to that, and then I realized I've just got to kind of be my own personality, not try and be like anyone else, because it's hard to maintain being like someone else. There are definitely people that I admire. There's lots of YouTubers I admire, very open about it. I love Joe Gilder very, very much. I'm always fascinated with Rick Beato's videos. He does some great breakdowns of music. I absolutely love Warren Hewitt. He's an awesome, positive force. And quite a few others, to be honest with you. I probably like you guys. I consume those folks. I try and get inspired by them. I try and see how I could explain things a little bit differently to them. But I don't try and be like anyone because I wouldn't be able to keep it up. So I think you can relate to that in your music. At the end of the day, you've just got to. I know it's always said, but I understand that a lot of you want to try and be commercial, but to some degree, I think you've just got to make the music that you love making, and don't expect to impress a massive percentage of people with it. None of us do. Just, if you let the people who are going to like you find you. Just do your thing and let them find you. It's just my personal advice. You'll stay more sane that way, if nothing else. So that's a little bit that I've learned about confidence. And I guess the last thing, and this is where I'm going to allude to Cakewalk a little bit, is this. This is a little bit of advice I was given by someone a long time ago, and this was the idea of not trying to force the course of life all the time, but in some ways allow, it doesn't matter what your beliefs are, but allow the universe to take you on your destination. Don't try and control everything. And that's something that for a little while I've tried to absorb, and I have intentions, and I have lots of intentions with this channel. But with the way the channel's gone, particularly in a couple of contexts which I'll talk about, is not necessarily what I intended right from the beginning. One of those is with a few videos that I've actually made to do with what we call them, virtual guitars. I've worked with a company called Ample Sound a fair amount, and that sort of happened by accident. And I've made quite a few videos about virtual guitar instruments, which is very strange because I'm primarily a guitarist. So I played around with virtual guitars for fun more than anything, to see what they did. And then after making some videos about different things, I think Ample Sound contacted me. I was not aware of their products. I tried a few different things in terms of uh, using virtual guitars just for fun, but I hadn't seen anything quite like their products. I thought it was a very, very good product. So then I kind of thought, what was a little bit missing with those products was that although they make the sound of acoustic guitars, and mostly I was using acoustic guitars, you've got to know how to play them rather than play them in the way you would a piano, and it just won't sound like an acoustic guitar. And that requires a little bit of knowledge about the instrument. And this is the point that I'd like to make to anyone who's using virtual instruments. It doesn't matter whether it's acoustic guitars or violins or trumpets or something like that. Learn as much as you can about the actual instruments. Learn about their ranges, their musical ranges, to make sure you're keeping within those ranges. And learn about the different sounds they make, the different articulations. It's very, very important to understand the instrument that you're playing virtually in order to get a good result from it. Drums is another really good example of that. A lot of us are using virtual drums. It's a good idea to listen to a lot of actual drummers and see how they play the things before you program them. But anyway, so it was quite unintentional that I would end up making those videos about virtual guitars, and it's sort of become a bit of a passion of mine to try and educate keyboard players about how to play guitar sounds from a guitarist perspective. And so I've really enjoyed doing that, and I have partway got through filming a series on that, which is still due to come out. And I haven't told anyone this, but I'll give a little sneak preview. I've actually recorded a whole song with my lovely partner, Susie, where we've used about 7 virtual guitars in there, which I think sound fairly realistic. And so I've almost recorded the song, got that finished. I'll be putting that out as a sort of a single and for you guys to listen to. And then I've made a short video series detailing how I've gone about doing that. Now, just to have a quick look in, I'll take a moment to look at the comments here. Shannon's there is saying he can relate. He struggled with bipolar, and music is therapy. And yeah, music is not just therapy. I mean, it is therapy, but it's just life. Music is wonderful. I don't want to get too philosophical, but for me, well, I'm sure for all of you here too, music is something just so special for us as human beings. And that's something I want to talk about, but we'll get to that later. But thanks for that, Shannon. And do you know any artists that might use Cakewalk, just so we can get an idea of its potential? I've been asked this a little bit recently, because I'd never really occurred to me myself, to be honest with you. And it's quite difficult to find out who would have used Cakewalk. Look, traditionally, I have to say that in terms of the way music was until now, where a lot of music was being produced in studios, even if people had made demos in Cakewalk, I think it's highly likely that those would have been remade, probably in, something like Pro Tools before they were released in commercial situations, simply because a lot of the big commercial studios are kind of glued to things like Pro Tools and Logic. That's becoming less and less so. Cubase as well. But I have to say to you that, from my perspective, having used a lot of DAWs, it's a little bit of a moot point, because you know what, they all really do a very, very similar thing. It's just going to be which one that you prefer the style of. And for a lot of you guys watching, one of the great things is that Cakewalk has been something you can just get hold of for free and get going. I wouldn't get too hooked up. I mean, just, I suppose anecdotally, I can say that after years and years and years of using it and using other DAWs, I'm not really aware of any sort of limitations it has as such. I've seen people talk in forums about things like drum tracking, that if you're doing really big jobs with drum tracking, that it can chog up a bit, but I'm not sure about it. I sort of feel a lot of that has to do with the system that you're using and how well you're managing your session as well, which is something that I'm going to make some videos about actually, as you work your way through a song, maintaining that file so that it doesn't get out of control and cause problems for you. So look, in my opinion, Cakewalk is just as capable as any other DAW in terms of recording a full song, because I've recorded lots and lots of songs with it. And I didn't really want to reveal this, but I will kind of let you guys know I'm halfway filming a series at the moment where I'm actually recording a song from its inception, from beginning all the way through to recording, mixing, mastering and releasing, and I am using Cakewalk as the DAW for that. So that's going to be coming up. It may be a few weeks away before I release that series, and I'm going to release it as a whole series rather than dribble it out over the next few months. It's something that's been keeping me very, very busy, and I'll be very excited to show. So you'll see from that series just what Cakewalk is really capable of. Alan. Hi, Alan. It's hard to learn theory in my 50s, but I dedicate time every day to learning a little more theory. Yeah, absolutely, Alan. I'm a big fan of theory. I know it's not very trendy to say. I was very, very fortunate. When I was a teenager, I was just a rock and roller. I was just into that sort of music. I thought that music such as classical music or whatever was for old people. I wasn't remotely interested, and I was very, very fortunate at high school to have quite a progressive music teacher who kind of found a way to get me interested in different types of music and taught me some music theory along the way, which a lot of guitarists miss out on. And I'm so glad that he did that, because it's really helped me out along the way. It's never too late to start learning. As you say, you're in your 50s. And look, you don't need to know everything. It's just good to learn some basics. Learning about key signatures, learning about the different scales, learning about timing, all that kind of stuff. I mean, that's where most of it is at. And I find that it helps me to understand DAWs as well. Even when you use a function which we use all the time, such as quantizing, music theory comes into that right away. And if you don't have a little bit of theory about how timing works in music, then you can get really, really lost with quantizing or find yourself just sort of stabbing in the dark. So yeah, it's really important. I'm glad you've mentioned that. Now, this is a big question, isn't it, Göran? What are the pros and cons of Cakewalk? So this is my personal opinion for what it's worth. The pros are, of course, that as I've said before in my videos, that it is free. But having said that, I would have recommended Cakewalk to people even before I did use it quite a bit. The reason I used to like it was because I actually found that, having used lots of other DAWs, that it had one of the most complete set of tools. I mean, it's very, very complete. And I've used some of the more advanced features on it, which are not available in some other DAWs. And so for me, there was some specific features at the time, which I used to use a lot. And I found, well, I couldn't find them in other DAWs. Sometimes I guess I would suggest, for me, that it sort of crashes a little bit more than some other DAWs. I currently use Cakewalk and Studio One, and Cakewalk sometimes crashes a little bit more than Studio One. Certainly, I got me into the habit of saving my work quite often, but that's not a lot. I mean, that's usually when I'm really pushing it a lot to the limit. I personally think that if I know they've done a lot of work, and I try and follow most of the releases, and they've been concentrating on some really important things, but I do think that I would like to see them give the UI a makeover. And I know it's difficult for them. I've actually been involved with software development in the past, and it's a big call because you've got an interface which has probably not changed very much in the last 15 years or so in lots of ways, or 10 years. And you can upset some people when you start to change things around too much. But I think there's a lot going on in Cakewalk, so they could do with a way of just making it a little bit more approachable. Because I think for beginners, when they first look at it, it's like, wow, there's just information everywhere. That's my personal opinion on the interface, but that's what I'm here for, to try and explain some of those things to you guys, to make it a bit easier. And you know, this was something that, as I say, it sort of happened by accident for me. I had been maintaining this is sort of one of my last points in terms of letting the river take you and following wherever the universe takes you. I had not intended at the beginning of this venture to be a cakewalk educator of any kind. A few videos in, I made a video about Cakewalk, which was the top 5 reasons to use Cakewalk. And I guess the reason that I made that video was I was actually going to make a series of videos about the different DAWs, the top 5 reasons to use FL Studio, Reason, Cubase, Logic, whatever. And that was meant to be the beginning of a of a series. It was the only one that got made. During the course of that, I guess I learned something from the comments and by the people who were responding to it, that an awful lot of people were coming into this either as a hobby or as a hopefully as a profession. And they were coming into it via Cakewalk, probably because, you know, a lot of people are short of money and they're not sure. It's quite expensive to spend a few $100s on another DAW, and they see a video like mine which says Cakewalk is free, so they give it a go. And you know, it's fantastic for them. But what that revealed to me was that there was a lot of people that were starting out and they needed some things explained to them in fairly straightforward language. Not the language that I might normally use. You know, normally if I'm chatting with other people, I might assume they know what this or that is. So I sort of thought, wow, I really want these people to be able to not just hear about this DAW, but actually be able to make music with it and release songs with it, you know. And I wanted to try and take down some of the barriers. So I think I made some really basic videos, and looking back, I think I could make them even more basic. I definitely think I'd like to do some videos about just basics of recording vocals and guitars and very simple things, how to plug in a microphone, where to put the microphone, all of that kind of stuff as well. And there's a little bit more that I think I need to cover in terms of the MIDI aspects, the piano roll, and a few things like that as well. As well as I'd love to cover some of the more advanced stuff. Definitely, you guys have let me know in quite a number of occasions some of the things you'd like me to do, but continue to do that. I kind of keep a list of the things that people want me to make, and I'm sort of getting my way through them. So Cakewalk wasn't intended, but it's here to stay. I'm very, very happy to have sort of found a home with it. Like I say, I also use Studio One, but I've used Cakewalk for since 1997. And I think it's really, I mean, I use both of those DAWs for different things, and it's great to be able to pass the knowledge on, because I suddenly thought, yeah, I kind of know a little bit about this, having used it for a few years. So okay, now next up we've got David. Good day, David. Do you have a preferred MIDI controller, or do you just use the keyboard? Thanks. I wouldn't say it's preferred, but I can't tell you, but I'm just looking at it myself. You will have seen it in my videos. It's this big old Yamaha KX8. It's a really old MIDI controller. I think I picked it up fairly cheaply secondhand a few years ago, and I really love it because it's got nice weighted keys. Now, I don't have a preference in terms of brand, but I do actually personally have a preference in terms of number of keys. I've had everything. I've had the 61 keys. I've had the 20. What brand? What do they come in? Sort of 20 something keys. You get the 40 something keys, and eventually I just got rid of them all, because that's primarily, and I'll tell you why, because I use a lot of virtual instruments, and particularly I use a lot of contact libraries, and they often have a lot of key switches with them. So if you guys don't know what key switches are, it will generally be that on one part of the keyboard you're playing the actual sounds. Say you're using a violin sound, and the key switches will do things like change that violin sound from a legato sound to a pizzicato or something like that. That's what key switches are. And generally those key switches are going to be on one extreme of the keyboard. So I like to have a nice full 88 key keyboard, so that's my preference for that. But they're pretty expensive, so generally, so if you're just starting out, then I'd sort of personally I would say go for a 61 key keyboard of some kind. I like to have the weighted keys, which makes it feel like a piano, but they're not so good for doing drums on. But I don't get along with drum pads very, very well. Some people do. Probably depends on which drum pads you get. I actually I've had lots of other keyboards, but I do find the ones that are not without the weighted keys a little bit better for doing virtual drums on. But hey, I didn't want too many keyboards in my studio, so I've just gone down to the one now. I used to have sort of three, but it's nice to keep it simple as one. I would recommend a couple of things if you're looking for keyboards, though, and not necessarily something you'll think about. If you're getting a controller keyboard, then yeah, make sure it's got some control knobs on it so you can control the sounds. Often you can map them to different virtual instruments and things. And I personally like to go for keyboards which have got transport controls on them, because often when you're playing your keyboard, you're not necessarily right next to your computer. So no particular brands. I've got some in my gear list, some keyboards that I've used in the past, David, and check that out, and that'll give you some good ideas, I suppose. And the next question I've got up here, Bud Greenwood, setting up multi-out instruments in Cakewalk is a breeze, has been for years. They were way ahead of their time. Yeah, I mean, I hadn't had too much experience with doing it on too many other DAWs, but definitely, as I showed in the sort of video I made the other day. In fact, the video I made the other day about multi-outs from Kontakt was a little bit complex, but it's not Cakewalk's fault. It's because Kontakt is diabolical, in my opinion, in terms of its design for its outputs. But it's awesome in lots and lots of ways, because there's lots of very, very good libraries for Cakewalk. So, there you go. Richard, happy anniversary. Mike, love your Cakewalk videos. No problem, Richard. Thank you so much for watching, guys. It's very much appreciated that you guys give me so much encouragement. So those are the main things that I've sort of learned. I've learned so much more. I mean, just the little things, guys. Lighting, sound, actually mixing sort of spoken word sound is, I've discovered through trial and error, is a little bit different to mixing music or vocals in music, and quite tricky. And I think I could really do with improving that in my videos still, but I'm doing my best, learning all the time. And just to give you guys some sort of idea, and I hesitate to say this because it sounds like a whinge, but it's not a whinge, because I really love doing this. But generally my videos take between 1 and 2 days to make in total, and proper full on days. The simple ones will take a day, in terms of, first of all, I'm not as good in front of the camera as I may appear. Just to say, hi folks, I'm Mike, and I hope you're well, and do that little drum thing. Sometimes takes me about 25 takes, which you guys don't get to see. And I'm going, why can't I just talk English? Because I lose the ability to talk English, apparently, once I press record on a camera. Then, sometimes some videos take a little bit of research and me double checking on some facts, because I do want to make sure that I don't give misinformation. And although I've been doing some things for years and I've been doing them in a particular way, I just like to double check that I've actually been doing it in a good way. Sometimes I don't need to check that, but sometimes I like to double check. And sometimes there's a lot of gathering of information about products. I like to try and give products a really, really good test out. If someone's offered me a product to review, I like to give it a really good test out, before I do it. And some videos have required me to record little pieces of music for demonstration, all that kind of thing. So yeah, a couple of days for a 15 or 20-minute video, which is why the series that I was telling you guys about is taking so long, because I'm making my weekly videos, and then on other days I'm continuing to make this series and doing the live show with Pete, as well as other musical activities I'm involved in as well. But yeah, who needs sleep? So I just wanted to quickly talk a little bit, as I begin to wind things up here a little bit, about the future and where I hope to go with this channel. I have a few sort of missions, I suppose. One is that I guess that there's a lot of channels out there which are working at a kind of what I think is an intermediate level. Um, and I'm not so sure that for people getting going right at the beginning that they're that well catered for, regardless of which DAW they're using. I'm going to continue to. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I make usually one video about Cakewalk, and then I make the next week I'll do a video about something else. Next one will be about Cakewalk. So for the time being, that's the way it's going to go. Because I know a lot of you guys are using Cakewalk, but you know, I also like to honor the people that here not using Cakewalk and give some general information about recording music at home. So that's going to continue in that way. As I say, I've got a couple of series in the works. And I hope to get those finished and at least out by the new year, if not before then. I would like, and I'd be interested what you guys have got to say about this. I would like to talk a little bit more about the actual art of music, because I think you guys only see kind of one side of me, and that's the slightly more technical, procedural side. But it's not quite who I am, in the sense that I'm so passionate about music from an emotional experience as an art form, not just as a because you know, working in a DAW is a very technical sort of process. But I would like to talk a little bit more and encourage people in terms of the art of music. It's a tricky one, because I'm not even sure that how qualified I am in a sense, but I'd like to have a discussion with you guys about that, because I think it's terribly important that we don't get bogged down in the technical side of it. And remember, everyone here, everyone watching this live stream now, and everyone who opens up a D&W, one day at some point in their life when they were young, they heard music and they were blown away. And that you can probably remember a moment like that in your life, and you thought, I want to do that. That's what I want to do. And it's really important to remember that side of things and not just get bogged down in technical aspects. So hopefully I'm going to be able to find a way to talk about that in some of the videos and inspire you guys. Now, another thing I haven't mentioned at all, but I want to find a way to showcase your music. I occasionally get to hear and see the music that you guys are making. I probably haven't said it explicitly enough, but you're free at any time to promote your music in the comments of my videos. I'm not going to be deleting. Obviously, if you put 10 of the same comment, I'm going to delete it. But if you want to tell people about your music, direct people towards your music, feel free to do it in my comments. I am not going to block you. I'm here to encourage you to make music. So it's wonderful to see the results of that. However, I'd like to take it a little bit further than that. And I'm currently, I suppose, trying to think of a way that I can showcase your music and perhaps even talk to some of you about your music, interview you about your music. I'm sort of trying to muddle through the legal aspects of that, and whether I need to make some sort of agreements with you guys before I use your music and all that kind of thing. But yeah, if you've got any ideas about that, then share them with me. You can email me at my email address at Creative Source. I think I've got that here handy to show you. So if you want to email me there, but if you just want to email me and tell me about your music, I'd love to hear about it. But I'd love to tell other people about your music as well. I guess I'm at that stage. I hate to say this word because it's one of my least favorite words, where I'm almost at the stage, not quite, where I'm regarded as a kind of an influencer. I hope over the next year I certainly will be regarded as that. And I'd love to use that position spread good music around the world from you guys, and I'm sure you're making excellent music. So that would be a nice thing. And the other thing is just a little thing. I've done quite a few giveaways during the year. I've sort of lost count, but it's something I enjoy doing. I haven't done any for a while, so I'm hoping to do much more giveaways and get some software and things in the hands of you guys so you can make use of it. It's always fun when we do that. So hopefully there'll be much more of that. I'm always open to your ideas. I know lots and lots of you want me to make videos about Cakewalk, and certainly that will be coming. I have to sort of apologize in advance if you make a suggestion to me and it doesn't come into fruition very, very quickly. It just does take time to make these videos and to try and weigh up which videos are going to be of most value to most people. Now, there are some things that I think I need to cover, which I think I'm going to get very few views on, but it's just important to cover certain things, and I'll be doing those as I see fit. I've just got some more comments to look at here, and I'll soon be signing off. Alan, here we go. Show as an expert tutorial producer you ever get. Oh, thanks very much, Alan. It's really it's very, very nice of you to say so. I honestly I think I could improve a lot more, and I hope to do so. I'm not sure that BandLab. I'm not sure I've come on their radar yet. I'll wait till I come on their radar. Wait till they're approaching me, because I think the deal will be a bit better. Yeah, that's what they tell me anyway. If only I was a good businessman. And Jacques, I hope I'm really not great at French names. Jacques. Anyway, your videos are very lively compared to other channels. You make it fun learning experience. Also, love your general. Yeah. Hey, thanks for that, Jacques. It was one of those things that, again, I talked with Pete about this, and I don't want to get into I really don't want to get into kind of like bagging other guys, because their approach is their approach and they're being themselves. But at home with my family, I'm kind of serious, but not all the time. I like to have a bit of fun and a bit of a laugh. And I thought, this is music, isn't it? I mean, we're basically in the entertainment industry in one way or another. And yeah, it doesn't have to be that serious. I think it's keep it fun. I think that's why most of us wanted to do it. I think anyway, but it's part of the reason I like to do it. Some people don't like it. Some people like to see me be more serious. So I'm glad to hear that you think I'm lively. I guess just trying to be myself, and I'll continue to do that. So look, I've been talking for 1 hour. I hope you guys have found this video a little bit interesting. It's been very, very self-indulgent, and I'm not sure I like the self-indulgent side of things. I'd much rather be moving on with giving you guys useful information so that you can record music. But I do want to finish off by, first of all, I just want to say thank you to all the people who have been here in the live stream. There's been loads of you. It was worth me waking up. It's now 4 a.m. here. It was worth me staying up for. I sort of had a ball. To whatever degree you can have a ball listening to yourself talk for an hour. I don't know how those guys do it when they do the regular live streams. But you guys have taken part in the live chat a lot there, and it's been lovely to have you there. So again, I'm just going to whiz through a few names there: Jacques, Alan, Richard, Dory, Bud Greenwood, David, Yishan Malik. Sorry, I didn't get to put your comment up there. I'm just going to chuck it up there. Sounds great. Get that. Yeah, that's awesome. DP, Göran Larsson, Alan, Chipperdine. It's 4 a.m. man. I mean, what can I do? And so many others, just loads and loads of other people have been taking part in the live chat, and I've really enjoyed seeing you guys. There's some names that I recognize and a few that I don't. So don't be a stranger. Say hi in the comments. It's been great to see you here, and I hope to perhaps do some more like this in the future. If you'd like to see me do some more live stuff, I can make it a little bit more focused on a specific subject so that we can all learn together, and you can just ask me questions And I feel quite sure that I'll be doing more of these. I had a great time, guys. So thank you so much for your time. As I always say, I do hope you're well. Take care of yourself. Take care of your mind, your body, your family, and then you're ready to make great music. And I will see you all in the next video.